Hi YouTube, welcome back to Wtf Rc Cars. So, really impressed with the way this GT2 runs, but I'm going to try and improve it slightly. So we have the front and rear stabiliser bars, and the rear part number is IF117 and the front one is IFW104B. Apparently these are the correct ones. Big difference in size between front and rear, but let's have a go with them. So, let's take a look at the front one first. And we do get some instructions with these. So, we're going to need the body shell off. I've just given this a quick clean up from yesterday. So, this is going to be the front stabiliser kit. Let's see how good the instructions are. Now it does say stabiliser kit for the Inferno Neo. So we do have the stabiliser kit retaining brackets already fitted, so they do come supplied with the car. So in the kit we do get 3 different sizes or 3 different strength stabiliser bars. So you get from thin to the thick ones. Generally I'd suggest going with middle one, see how it works. And then we get a little pack of these things. So again, I'll get you a picture so we can have a nice close-up. But you basically get a bunch of tiny little tie rods and little screws, and then the little ball joints that go on the end of them. So let's see what we need first. So we're definitely going to need 2 of the little tie bars, which are these tiny little things. And they are blank on one end and then a little hex drive on the other. Yeah, that's 1.5mm. So it looks like it's suggesting to use these ones, and it does look like you screw these all the way in. So let's get it started with the hex driver. So if we screw that in to start with and then screw one of the other side on, and then see where it lines up. So we're going to need them at a bit of an offset, and I think just for ease of access, probably going to be easier dropping the front bumper off. Now it looks like that is 2 screws on bottom and 2 screws on top. Must admit, these are not the best instructions. So once you remove them top 2, you should get the 2 little tubes. They will drop out, and then you can flip it upside down, and I believe it's just these 2 that we need to remove. And these are the coarser threaded screws. I think these go through into the bottom of the bulkhead. Yep, so that's got his entire bumper assembly removed. So you remove 2 screws at the bottom, 2 screws in front, and then we're going to need these 4 little screws out, and they retain the sway bar, or the sway bar brackets at this point, should I say. And be careful when you're tightening these back up, because they're only small screws and really fine threads, and they're going into plastic bulkheads, so be easy to strip these. Now if you take the top 2 out, you can then just slide these down to one side. So that'll give us some idea of where this sway bar is going to line up, and then we can just pop these back up and pop the screws back in, and that'll keep a sway bar in place for us. You will have two tiny little hex head stub screws or grub screws to put in, and they'll go into the front of these brackets, and that'll be to remove the play from the sway bar. So it's probably easier to get them in at this point because you've got nothing else fastened to the sway bar, so you'll be able to see when it's binding on it. And as I say, don't over tighten these. So you want these tiny little grub screws, and these are going to be 1.5mm, and then you just screw them down into the holes in your sway bar brackets, and all you're looking to do is remove the forward to back play. So you don't want to pinch your sway bar completely tight, you just want to remove the play out of it. They don't need to screw down much once you get them flush with the actual brackets to take all the play out of it. So you still want it to be able to move freely. So let's get one of these and see how it lines up with the shorter ones. I'm looking at that thinking maybe the shorter ones are the way to go, because it doesn't bind at all with any of the drive shaft or anything. So I would suggest to build these up the same way as you do for the, I think it's the Neo. So in one end we're going to want one of the tiny little ball joints or olives. And you should be able to carefully just pop them in. Then on the other end you're going to want one that lines up with the sway bar. These are always a bit awkward to get in. And then let's see if it says 1 or 2 grub screws, because there's a hole in both sides, but as a rule with these you only ever really use one. And I'm gonna get a tiny bit of thread lock on these as well, so I would put a small amount of thread lock on them. And then you want to line it up so it looks at least somewhere close to the position that your sway bar comes out at. And then we've got some of these little screws, and they're going to go into the rear of the suspension arm, looking at the setup here. And they do screw straight into the actual suspension arm. Then you want to line your grub screw up so it's poking from the top. That'll make it easier to get through the top A-arm, and doesn't actually give any guidance to what I can see as to where you're meant to tighten it up. So I'm just going to put this flush with the bottom of the sway bar. Let's now get the other side built up, and as you tighten these up you can see sort of what angle you need to get them to. Then again we're going to want one olive in the bottom, and then if you look which way you're going to be fitting it, and again you just want a tiny amount of thread lock on it. Because we don't want a sway bar coming loose. I'm actually surprised this kit doesn't come with the roll bars fitted. To say it's meant to be an on-road orientated race vehicle, because the only vehicles I wouldn't suggest fitting anti-roll bars to is extreme off-road vehicles, because it can restrict the travel at suspension. But basically that is where we've got to get the screw through the hole in the front of this. But it is a little fiddly getting the olive to go through the A-arm. But it's not too bad getting the screw in, because you can actually line it up quite easy. Certainly an awkward angle to get the screw in. It's almost at the point where you'd need to remove the A-arm to get to it, but not quite. So both of them fastened in. We got one there, one there. I'll try and remember to take some close-up pictures. But we should have stiffer suspension. Doesn't actually look like it's a bad job to change the sway bar if you want to put the stiffer or weaker one in. Now you do get a bunch of these little screws, tiny little ones, and you will have these two left from fitting the front sway bar. So let's put them to one side and we'll look at refitting the front bumper. It should simply be a case of line the front bumper back up. What I would do is put these two screws through and then drop these on. I certainly think that'll give you a far easier time getting this front bumper back in. But once you've got those started, you can then flip it upside down and get the bottom ones in. And once those are fitted, you can flip it back over and just tighten your front bumper back up. So that's the front one fitted, and we've got us two parts that are spare and a bunch of screws. So let's see if the rear one is any different. Now this rear one comes with no instructions whatsoever, so I'm guessing the original buggy that this fitted on came with the sway bar, so these are more as a spare. So this one is considerably larger, so the first thing I would do is remove the two top screws and just back the bottom screws out a little. So again, you can take the top ones out and just loosen the back, and it wants to come through and sit above your drive shafts or your axles, whatever you want to call them. And it is a nice handling kit to start with, and these are only going to make it even better. And it does look like this much larger rear one does line up perfect with the holes in the arms. So next thing we're going to want to do is take one of the little grub screws and put it in the hole in the centre, and same as we did with front, you just want to screw them in just so it takes that side to side play out. It is the longer of the grub screws that we're screwing in as well. So yeah, once you put these grub screws in, you want to still have a nice amount of free play on the sway bar. So same as the front, we're going to get two of these little plastic ends and there's 1.5mm driver. I do find it strange that the front comes with fitting instructions and the rear doesn't. So you can get an idea of the kind of angle you want to fasten them at just by looking. Then we're going to want an olive in the bottom. Just make sure it sits in all the way. Then you're going to want one of the ends for the sway bar. We're going to want a tiny grub screw and a little bit of Loctite or thread lock. And these are quite a lot easier than the front ones to get to, so what I'm going to do is drop that down into the retaining slot in the A-arm and slide the sway bar on. And again, I'm just going to tighten these up level with the actual end of the sway bar. You can always adjust them afterwards, it's not a problem. So it'll go down into it. Then you want to get one of your screws. I'm not sure if these are going to be easier or more difficult to get to. Luckily they're not actually bad to screw in. So that's one side fitted. Let's get the opposite side built up. What I'll try and do is get you quite a few close-up photos so you can have some idea of what screws we're undoing and where these are actually fitting on the RC. Any of you that have been into RC for a while, you'll have come across sway bars before, so you're not really going to struggle fitting these, but anyone new to it, it's probably going to help you if I get you some close-up pictures. So, small olive in the bottom. And we want the bigger one for the sway bar again in the top. One little grub screw. With a tiny bit of thread lock on it, because this stuff can get all over the place and we really don't want that. Then again, I'm going to get it into place. I'm going to run it just to the end of the sway bar and tighten it up at that. Then we're going to want to take a screw. Right, let's see if we can get this one screwed in, because I've not got much of an angle to get at this. Yeah, it looks like it's not going to be too bad. And again, these are quite finely threaded, so you don't need to go crazy tightening them up. Right, so same as the front, we have a bunch of these tiny little screws with the fine thread, look like they're meant to be going into a metal bulkhead, or at least a metal retaining clip. But that is the front and rear sway bar kit fitted to the Kyosho GT2 VE. It does actually feel like it's stiffened the suspension up a little, but it was set really nice on this as standard. It should take out a bit of the body roll. So the idea is, as one wheel loads up, it takes the load on the other wheel and slightly lifts that, so it makes the vehicle sit flatter as opposed to rolling on a corner. And it does feel quite resistant to body roll. But lovely little vehicle. We've now got it fitted with sway bars. So we've got quite a lot of other modifications in mind for this, including a lot of bling bits that aren't really necessary but look nice. Some of the aluminium bits will tighten up the bits of play we've got in the suspension. So, final thoughts on the sway bar kit. Does do what it says, works as it should do. It definitely fits, so if you order these part numbers, they definitely fit. The front ones, You want to use the shorter links. The back one only comes with the shorter links. Quite a quick job to do. And bit weird that the rear doesn't come with instructions, but the front does. But that's how it is. But thanks again for watching WTF Rc Cars. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell and share to friends and family. And I'll catch you guys again in the next one.